For you people that may have only heard about our president through the alumni magazine or other publications that are mailed out, I would give a little more background than I would if you were all just Bowling Green or Western folks that have been around a while. Dr. Meredith, that grew up in Orangeburg, Kentucky, and he's a Kentucky Wesleyan graduate, got his master's degree at Western Kentucky University, then went to Ole Miss where he earned his doctor's degree. He taught in the public schools of Kentucky. He's taught in the classrooms of colleges and universities. I guess the thing that I'd like to say to you, that my personal feeling about this fellow, that I think that he knows Western. He knows its broad foundation. He knows its rich heritage. And I think he's doing a great job of mixing that old and that solid foundation with a futuristic type approach to public higher education that's good for all of us. And I'm proud to introduce to you, and you basketball players will appreciate this tall guy, that he was quite a basketball player himself at Kentucky Wesleyan College and was a member of that national championship team. Our president, Dr. Meredith.
Thank you, Lee. All these years I keep getting better the longer I've been away, but that's the first time I've been on the national championship team, but I appreciate that. I may just add that to some of the things I've been saying. But Lee, I appreciate that, and Lee, as you know, is back in a row for us working with our golf team. We were trying to decide who to get to do that, and we said who is on the golf course every day that we can get cheap. First person everybody thought about was Lee Robertson, so it worked out really, really well for us, and we're glad. I think they even won a match last fall, but no, I'm just kidding. They've done a good job with them. It's really good to see this turnout back here for this evening. You know, at the 71 team, and I don't know how much all of you know how much of a legend you've become over time, but as time goes on, you can now beat anybody in the whole world. You've gotten better and better every year. But I think as people watch the tape outside of some of those great games back at that time, it brings back some wonderful, wonderful memories. And even though we are here honoring those of you who played such a major part in that, the fact remains, the best I can tell in the short period of time that I've been back here, that this whole room full of people were a part of that team with you. They were all walked with you and cried with you and yelled with you through every point and every game. And there was a great deal of emotion associated with that team. And I think that speaks well of this team and all those who were the supporters of that, the cheerleaders and so forth. I think it says an awful lot about Western Kentucky University. And I would say to you that as good a tradition as you all put in place, that what we see now is a rebuilding of that tradition at Western Kentucky University. And we have as a goal to get back there and be where you all were, and maybe even go another step beyond that. And that's what we're shooting for. This is one of those things that presidents get to do. I'm doing a second dinner at the same time tonight, right down the hall. We have the new Commissioner of Education, Dr. Thomas Boyson, on campus, and he's our guest tonight and be yelling for us at tonight's game. So I'm going to slip kind of back and forth between the two, and I'll look forward to meeting and seeing some more of you all I didn't get a chance to meet earlier. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.
The president of Western's W Club, he's also my doctor, and he keeps me in good health, and he's going to come forward to just kind of official hello as a spokesman for the W Club. And as he comes to the mic, he will remain here because he will be giving out the certificates to all the honorees tonight. And as you come, Jack, I want the better 9/10 of that twosome to stand and be recognized. Janice.
Lee always asks about Janice. He says, how's your wife and my girlfriend doing? Well, let me tell you, to keep Lee in good health is a tough job, I will tell you that. On behalf of the Alumni W Club, I would like to welcome each and every one of you tonight. Needless to say, we are just elated to have this group back with us. Many of us grew up and follow these guys and play just like Tom said, every game with them, and again, they mean so much to us, and we're just elated to have the players back, the cheerleaders back, and the coaches. The W Club is proud to sponsor this event tonight. As many of you know, this is the second major event that we have done in the last month. The first one was on February the 2nd, when we had our NFL Pro Coaches banquet. We had the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, Jerry Glanville, who is a former assistant coach here. We had Romeo Crennel, who was the defensive line coach for the Super Bowl champion New York Giants. We had Dale Lindsey back, who was with the New England Patriots, and then came back and was also an All-American here at Western. This event went well, and we're just thrilled again that we can follow that one up with this event here tonight. The W Club is very active right now. I'd like to say that this is our year that we've had the most members. We appreciate that. Any people that are not members in the W Club, boy, we'd sure like to have you join our club, because we're trying to make a statement. We're trying to make things better for Western Kentucky University and for the athletic program here. Any monies that we obtain through dues, through profits that we obtain by events like this and the NFL Pro Coaches event are put back into the university. We do it in various different ways. The main way that we're doing it at this point in time is through the purchase of letters and letter jackets for our lettering athletes. Up until last year, and y'all may not know this, but up until last year, for about 7 or 8 years, they were not getting letters, and this was due to a problem, just simply a cutback in the budget, restraints that were placed on the university by the state government, and this is a project that we took on ourselves, and we're real proud of that. We went down to a local bank, borrowed the money, and we're just paying that one off. But we're doing well with that, and again, we appreciate all the help that we have gotten there. I had asked Jim Richards, and I want to recognize a few people now. I'd recognize Jim Richards. He took over this job of getting this group together, and needless to say, him along with Lee Robertson and Lee Murray and all of the rest of the board of directors of the W Club have done an outstanding job, and I'd like for all of them to stand so that we can recognize them. Again, these are people that are dyed-in-the-wool Hilltoppers, and again, we just appreciate all their help. Again, one final word I'd just like to say is that all of the 71 group, just make sure that when you leave that Butch Gilbert or Lee or one of us has your correct address, because we want to keep in touch with y'all. Again, thank y'all.
Jack, you just stay in place to give out the certificates. Number one on our list is a person that was president at the time we went to the Final Four. And if you people can remember, that was also probably the most trying time that any college and universities across the land were having in protest days. And I've heard our president, our then President Dero Downing, say many times that he was glad that he had the basketball team and they're winning in successful ways to ease the pressures of some of the other things that he was having to deal with at that time. Even though, Mr. President, we were lucky, I think, at our campus to have a whole lot less problems than some of them did. To receive your certificate and to make a statement, and while you're coming up here, we'll introduce then the First Lady, Harriet.
Thank you, Lee and Jack, members of the 1971 great Hilltopper basketball team, Coach John Oldham and Jim Richards, assistant coach Buck Sidner, who's unable to be with us tonight, Ted Hornback, who was athletic director at that time, and friends who have gathered here to honor this fine team. Let me say that I'm highly honored to have this opportunity to greet you and in the words of a president of some former years, express the appreciation for the support that has continued over the years to come from so many sources, and certainly from this outstanding group who are here tonight to express their affection and appreciation for this basketball team. Thank you very much.
Dr. Kelly Thompson and Sarah were scheduled to be here and were invited, and Dr. Thompson called me last evening, and they both have got what they say the bug that's going around and felt like they couldn't get out. But Mac and Glover and Jerome and you others, Jerry, that heard that speech that he made out there at the Astrodome on Saturday morning before we played Kansas, remember that he's made a lot of great speeches in his day, but as short as I am, after hearing that speech, I wanted to play. And he wanted me to convey to you people how much he'd like to be here, and if you ever get a chance sometime down the line to write that guy a note, you don't know how much good it would do him. Now the second recipient is, as Dr. Downing has already said, was the athletic director then, but I think more than athletic director, I'd like to go back and talk about Ted Hornback playing days as a high schooler, playing days as a Western, one of the all-time great guards, and very successful as a high school basketball coach, and then came back here for those 42 years when Mr. Diddle was making the name for himself in this university, that the tactician behind the scene was the great Ted Hornback. Mr. Hornback, if you'll come.
Thank you very much, Lee. I didn't know this was going to happen. I didn't bring any notes. Last time, at our last meeting we had, I reached in to get my notes, and it happened to be the grocery list, so I was I'm going to just say one thing about this ball club. Mac, Jerome, Clarence, and all of you, blame it was great to be with you. You did a good job. I want to tell you this little story about, and then I'm going to stop. As you folks know, if I get started talking, I'll just keep on. You know that happened at Hilltopper Athletic Foundation. I had 5 minutes, and I kept saying, "Is my 5 minutes up?" They said, "No, you got a few more." And I got through a check, and I'd talk 15 minutes. I'm not going to do that time. In this ball game down in Georgia, I was athletic director at that time and retired at the end of the season, and John became athletic director, and then didn't have much to do, see, he took it easy. In this ball game, at the half, we were leading by about 18 or 20 points. We were really pouring it to them. Joe Dean, who is now the athletic director at LSU, interviewed Harry Lancaster and me at the half. And he started out by saying, "Harry, what do you think about it?" Harry said, "It doesn't look too good." And Joe said, "Well, I've seen Kentucky come from behind greater deficits than this." Harry said, "Yeah." He said, "What do you think about it, Ted?" I said, "No way, no way." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "They can't stand that press." I said, "It's going to get worse than ever." And it did. I got back home. I started getting calls and letters. I told Joe and Harry, I said, "I'll tell you one thing. If Mr. Diddle, if he's up there or if he's down there, I don't know which place. But I'll say one thing, if he's having practice somewhere today, he's going to call it off to watch this ball game." And boys like Gene Rhodes and a number of the rest of them called me or wrote me letters, and they said, "Coach said you don't know how much pleasure we got out of you saying that, because we believe it, he probably did." Well, Mac, Clarence, all you guys, it was a great pleasure to be with you and coach with you. You were pretty good boys, but you took care of yourselves pretty well. We didn't carry on the big way that the boys do now. We were, some people would call us cheapsteaks, but we didn't have much money. On the roads, on the trips in Kentucky, we only gave you $8 to eat on for the day.
Time's up.
Away from home, we'd give you 12. In New York, but they'd spend it all on phone calls. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Lee.
Right out of Adair County High School, Jim Richards. On your way up, we'll introduce his wife, Annette. Jim, a statement?
No, I know we got to move along, Lee. Just thanks all you guys and all you cheerleaders, managers, trainers, all of you that were a part of the whole crew. Thanks for coming back. We appreciate having you back on campus.
I think everybody here knows now that Jim is the Director of Alumni Affairs after serving as assistant coach under John and then as head coach. Jim, I thought you were going to make a little, you can stay longer than that. I wasn't going to slap your hand. Sports Information Director at that time, and now the Sports Information Director at Middle Tennessee State University in Murfreesboro is Ed Gibbon. And while he's coming, his wife Sheila.
I didn't come prepared for a speech either.
We don't need
There-
one.
You won't get one either. But I am glad to find out you're the only guy I know of remembers when Ted Hornback played high school basketball. No wonder it's such a hard job keeping you healthy. You sure he's a doctor or an embalmer? There are a lot of great memories about this basketball club and about this university, but I'll just tell one brief story. Over the past, I'm not going to say how many years, I've had the pleasure of handling a lot of athletes in a lot of interview situations. But after the basketball game in Freedom Hall in Louisville, when we annihilated Jacksonville, Terry Davis wound up that ball game playing forward because we had 5 guards on the floor at once. And he threw in a shot from the corner that Gilmore came out of the lane trying to block, and Gilmore took a big swing at it and he missed it about that far. And the ball says, swish. So after the game, Dave Adams, who was writer with the Courier-Journal, comes in the dressing room and he corners Terry back in the dressing room and he says, Terry, he said, didn't you feel intimidated when Gilmore came after that ball? Terry said, no sir, I just looked him straight in the navel and let it fly.
Back when you guys were playing basketball, you had a student secretary, full-time student, full-time secretary by the name of Paulette Snell. Paulette Snell now is the office manager for Hill's Pet Food, and she and Perry have a son. Come up this way, Paulette, and stand up, Perry. They have a son, Chris, that just signed to play football at Western next year. Two team physicians in those days, Dr. Jerry Martin and Dr. Carol Brooks. And those guys, as you know, doctors don't have time to do this, but those guys took time and enjoyed every minute of it. As Jerry and Carol come forward, we'll ask, there's Peggy and Jenny to stand, please.
Lee, Carol and I figured that Jack wasn't doing a good job, so if he wants to help you, just come by.
I think the entire program is a hoax. It has not been 20 years.
We're down to, we're down to the cheerleaders. And they're awful pretty, and the guys are still ugly. I guess, at one sad note, we'd all like to remember Brenda Taylor. You people that don't know or may have been away knew that she met with an untimely death a couple of years ago. And I have to tell one story about Brenda that I can remember in underground Atlanta on Friday night after we had whipped Kentucky on Thursday night and before we played Ohio State on Saturday. Brenda and Kay Statler were eating dinner, Joyce, if you remember, with our family in underground. And they were the cutest little things, as all of them were, that you've ever seen. Fine looking little legs, and I was bragging on how good they looked. And Brenda Taylor told me, she said, Mr. Robertson, you don't know how many times I've prayed for skinny legs. I think all of us will remember her as full of life and as vivacious as she could be, and I think we all have really missed that gal and don't understand that, but have to accept it. First, Jerry Broadander. Jerry Broadander is married to Teresa Davenport, and while Jerry comes forward, Teresa, you stand, please, so we can recognize you. Wait just a minute now. Jerry graduated from Middletown High School in Middletown, New Jersey, WKU in 1971. He owns his own company now, manufacturing rep. It's called Broadander Lighting Sales. They live in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. They have 3 children, Christopher 16, Laura Beth 12, and Ashley 9, and we're glad you're here. Cindy Cherry Dawson, and while she's coming, her husband Robert, also a Western graduate. They live in Nicholasville, Kentucky, and Robert is a district manager for Metropolitan Life Insurance Company, and I understand, Cindy, that you are writing religious Bible stories and teaching the ones you write. Admirable. We're glad you're here. I don't know how many more, but I see Kay there. There's more than one Calhoun person here, because here's from Calhoun, Kentucky cheerleader Rodney Howard. And Rodney's wife Patty. Rodney lives in Calhoun, Kentucky. He's a farmer. They have 3 children, Ashley 16, Randy 9, Chuck 6. The one and only, the great Gus Luckert.
Hi, Jack. How you doing, buddy?
Now, Gus, you stand there. I'm going to pick on some of you. His wife, Carolyn. Carol. Gus graduated from St. Xavier High School 1969, WKU in 74. He's got 4 C's in his house. Besides Carol, he's got Carrie 9, Casey 7. That's not Casey, is it? Cubby 6. And he teaches PE at Riverside Elementary School, and he also on the side does DJ deal, but tonight I'm going to help you.
That's right.
A statement?
I'm not going to say much. The only thing was, I was thinking he looked the same he did, 20 years ago, but now you can't see because you can't read your card anymore. Get those glasses.
Lanny Miller. Lanny. Wife Neve. I don't know how I missed that. Sorry about that. Lanny, you got to make a statement too. Tell us where you're living now and what you're doing and your children, if you have any. Anything you want to say to them.
Thank you very much. We live in Glasgow. We have 2 children, Sarah and Robert, and I work for State Farm Insurance.
Debbie Mae Nunley, and as she comes, her husband Marvin. Any statement?
Well, I'm glad to be here. My husband and I live in Owensboro. We have 3 stepchildren, and I own and operate a real estate company. And I can't believe it's been 20 years.
Mary Jane Scarborough Parish. And her husband, Jimmy. Mary Jane, you get to tell it all right here.
It's so great to see everybody back, and I agree with what everybody said about it. Doesn't seem possible. It's been 20 years, and I know when we're all, lying on our deathbed, which is a horrible thing to think about, I know those special years in 1969 to 1972 are all going to be flash before us, and it was a time none of us are going to ever forget, and it's great to see everybody here. Thanks.
Mary Jane that year, by the way, was the National Cheerleader of the Year. Let's give her another hand. I hate to call a name that's not here, but I don't want to miss one that might be. Did Frank Rizzo get here? I got the glasses on, Gus. Sue Pritchett Thomas. And Malcolm. You want to tell us about where you live now, and your kids, and that deal.
I don't like microphones. They make me sound like I'm from McLean County. So. I am a retired teacher. I live in Louisville. I have 2 children, a 12-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. My husband is Vice President of Sales for Andalex Resources, which, being a true Kentuckian, is a coal company. It's nice to see everybody.
Joe Swissler. All right. And while he's coming, his wife Bonnie. You get to tell your story.
Oh, thanks. Hello, nice to be back. Everybody looks like they haven't changed. Some of us have. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. I'm with Shopsmith Incorporated. They're a training manager. And have a nice young son, Michael, 4 years old, and my lovely wife, Bonnie, came with me. And it's great to be back. Thank you.
Before I introduce the managers, I'll need to tell you all about the trainer that you had at that time, Russ Miller. We've talked with him on the phone both up in Minnesota or Michigan and down in Lakeland, Florida. He's just moved jobs from where he was at University of Michigan to the trainer for the Detroit Tigers. And he's down now in Lakeland, Florida, and will be there until the team starts playing April the 15th. He's having a hard spring. But we've talked with him on the phone. Dr. Jerry Martin had also talked with him. He wanted us to be sure and let you people know he's thinking about you, and he remembers it, and it was fun. And now the managers for the team at that time first, and we'll let each one of these managers in a short way tell about your life and your family as you come forward. Benny Beach Jr. You can also present your first ladies as you do that.
Thank you for the opportunity of being here this evening. The only thing I can say is that I've lost, Jerry Dunn's got. My wife Marlene, I work here at the university in the Student Affairs office, and I'm glad to be back. Thank you so much.
Ron Berry.
This is my wife, Laura, and we're from Elizabethtown, Kentucky. We've been there about 2 years. We've been all over the state, Glasgow, and a few other places. And it's a privilege to be a manager. Oh, I better not forget the son and the daughter. I've got a 15-year-old tomorrow son, and a little girl that's 11 that thinks she's going on 21. But we are glad to be here, and you know, you're always proud to be part of the basketball team, and you're always glad to tell people, boy, I was part of that team that went to the NCAA, and they'll look at me, you know, as tall as I am, and say, what'd you do? I said, well, I helped Mac. I taught him how to jump center. So I was always proud to be part of that team and glad to be here. Thank you.
Randall Patchell.
It's really nice to be back. I think the last time I was back was probably 10 years ago for the same type of show. Really do enjoy seeing everybody again. My wife Kathy couldn't make it. She's homesick with the flu like some other people have been lately. I have a stepdaughter who's 16 who will be starting at Western next year, and a stepdaughter 15 who lives in Franklin, Tennessee. But it's nice to be back, and really did appreciate all the work and everything with the 71 team. Thank you.
Paul Gray.
My wife Roxanne. I'm presently the physical therapist for Dr. Goodwin and Dr. Beard and Dr. Connolly. Those names probably ring a bell with you as there are some of our team positions. And it's really been a pleasure working with some of the athletes from Western now that we're back in Bowling Green.
Billy Squeaky Kendall.
Squeak! Squeak!
Okay, I've promised that I'll give only the Reader's Digest version of my speech, which originally was going to last for 2 hours and a half. But after looking back over the crowd and see the snow on the roof, I want to leave you with one final thought. Remember that you're not getting old when your hair turns gray. You're not getting old when your teeth decay. But you're getting old when you start to creep and your head makes a date that your body can't keep.
The road to the Final Four. We're down to the basketball players, the main actors. You think the road to Houston didn't start in Bowling Green, Kentucky. It started in Allen County, Scottsville, and Glasgow, Caverna, DuPont Manual, Chattanooga, Ashland, Metropolis, Illinois, Cincinnati, Ohio, and maybe a couple other places, but that's most of them. We got a note that I must read from Gary Sunmaker that you people that don't know, he's having back surgery, and he asked me to read this letter. Dear teammates and friends, as a result of having back surgery last week, I am regretfully unable to attend this 20-year reunion of the 1971 Hilltopper team. It goes without saying that I am extremely disappointed not to have the opportunity of seeing all of you and reminiscing days gone by. I am confident that we would all agree that it was a very special time 20 years ago, times when we shall all cherish, which we will all cherish forever. And particularly, I value the friendships which developed then and remain today. I believe we should all take great pride in our success and accomplishments achieved in 1971 as part of what may be the best team ever to wear the Hilltopper uniform. Throughout the 1970-71 season, the Ohio Valley Conference and the NCAA tournaments, we had a team work very, very hard and put forth the effort necessary to win. But more importantly, we enjoyed what we did, enjoyed doing it together. I hope that this reunion is as enjoyable for all of you as our times were 20 years ago. I wish you all the best in your endeavors, and may the 1971 Hilltopper team always hold a special place in our hearts. Thank you, and good luck, Gary Sunmaker. I really believe that this crowd would a whole lot rather hear from you people than for me to introduce you. We had our plans made that maybe I could move it along a little faster, because we do have a time schedule of you being introduced prior to the game, and you know how tight that schedule gets, so we can't vary but about a couple of minutes. But when I introduce you people, I wish you'd come to the mic, tell who you brought with you, tell a little bit about your life, and anything you want to say, but you got to remember to don't wander or we'll be late. And we're going to start out, and you know what, you people don't know how much fun I had in calling all these folks. Probably in the last 10 days I've talked with each of them 2 or 3 times, and each time they couldn't get off, or I couldn't get off one because we were asking about somebody else or reminiscing about it. And I'd like to tell each of you all how I felt about each one of them, but I think more importantly you'd like to hear from them. So anything each of you all would like to tell, your high school, your Western story, and who you brought with, what you're doing, we'd appreciate that. We'll start out with a DuPont Manual graduate, Jerome Perry.
Thank you very much. It is indeed an honor to be back at Western. I have so many familiar feelings. I turned the corner and I saw the arena and I had a heart throb because it brought back days of old. It is a pleasure to see the red, so much red, and the tradition started long time ago, in which it has shaped the course of our lives. And as I look at everyone that played on the team, we indeed have been a success not on the basketball court but also in life. I just want to make one comparison, and let me say this first. The person I brought with me is Sylvia Espelitz and Joanne Cole, which is a graduate of Western. But as I want to say one thing, and I'll be quick, is that there was a game we were playing, and I thought I was working very hard. I was sweating up a storm. Coach Odom took me out of the game. He sit me down, and I said, "Coach, what is the problem?" He said, "I can tell when you're ready to play because it seemed like you're floating." I said, "Well, now I want to ask him, since I moved to Minnesota, am I floating, am I skiing?"
Steve Eaton.
Well, it's great to see a lot of people here tonight and a lot of faces I haven't seen for a number of years, and we certainly appreciate Western for putting on this, and this is the first opportunity for me to be back here, I think, in about 12 years, so it's been a while. My wife, Margaret, is a graduate of Western. She couldn't be here tonight. We've got 4 kids, so you guys that have kids know how that is. You're going in 4 different directions at once. But I did bring my oldest daughter, Kelly, and I'll ask her to stand real quickly. And I won't embarrass her boyfriend who came with us too. We live in Atlanta, and I have a company called WellCare International. We own and operate about 40 healthcare centers in about 18 states around the country. And we've lived there now for almost 12 years, so it's really become home for us and for our kids. There's a lot of fond memories, and I think the thing that's best about these reunions, the memories are great, but it's great to see the people again and have a chance to really share in some of the good things that have happened to them in the succeeding years. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Terry Davis.
First of all, I'd just like to thank all the people responsible for bringing us back, because some of these, of course, fellows I haven't seen in 20 years, and some I have. I want to recognize my wife, Kim, and son, Terry Jr. I want to make a special thanks to all the managers and the cheerleaders who did so much for us. It seems like when we were here, time was sort of speeded up for us, and I'm sure we never got the opportunity to say thank you, so I want to take it now and say thank you for all that you did for us when I was here and for when the rest of us was here. Well, one thought that came to my mind on the way down to Western was the people that we played with on this 71 team. Now, regardless of what people say, basketball is a contact sport. Now, I think all the players recognize that and realize it. But the thing that comes to my mind on this 71 team was a lot of practice and a lot of tough games. And on this particular team, not once did we have any incidents of any physical contact between team members. And I think that's a tribute to the players on the team. And I just want to leave you with that thought and thank you again for having us down. Thank you.
The Glasgow Scotty, or one of the Glasgow Scotties, now living in Louisville, Rex Bailey.
I'm not good at this, but from my wife with me, Sandra. And I have 3 kids. I have a son 9 named Dwight. I have a son 11, Rex Jr., and I got a daughter, Kenya. It's nice to be back, and it's nice to see all the faces. Some of them I see quite often. They live in Louisville. But the main thing that I appreciate about the team we had, it was like a family. So many of us were close to Bowling Green, and we became one big family, and it's good to see all the family here, and thank you.
The other Glasgow Scotty, now living in Louisville, Jerry Duggan.
I'm sort of like the other Glasgow Scotty. I'm not too good at this, but I sure appreciate everything that everybody done for us in '71, and I never can forget about it. I think about it a lot. I have the game of Kentucky on the album, and I sit and listen to it a lot sometimes. But it doesn't feel like it's been that long, but I sure appreciate everything everybody's done. Thank you.
I guess at the sake of embarrassing Jerry a little bit, my conversation with him on the phone made me feel like I wanted to play again too. I have never talked with anybody that was as appreciative and was enthusiastic, and he just wouldn't hardly let me off that phone, and it was my call. But Jerry, I enjoy.
I'd like to introduce my wife, Marty.
I was going to help you out there if you just wait. But I did enjoy my conversation. Sometime we'll do it again face to face. We won't have to quit so soon. The Hazard Flash, Jimmy Rose.
I would just like to say that it is really nice to see so many people that backed us in '71, and to come back and still see them here tonight is really a great feeling. I would like to introduce my wife, Dorothy. The 1971 team was really a team that I really enjoyed playing with. It was like a family. I really felt close to the guys that I played with, and I feel like during that time that I learned more about closeness and family way with the 1971 team. Thanks a lot for everybody coming out, and the years at Western were really great.
I must tell you this too, Jimmy, that I made a lot of calls tracking you down, and when I finally found where you were working, there were 4 or 5 different people at that hotel that wanted to tell me what a great person you were. I know you appreciate that. Chuck Whitt.
I'll just take just a minute. First of all, with me tonight is a special person in my life, Kathy Pike. I have a son, now 13, living in Florida, who thinks he's Michael Jordan's clone. Remains to be seen whether or not he turns out that way. I certainly would simply reflect all the comments that have been made so far, and I think one of the things that, if there is anybody in this room that didn't know this team back in '71, I think all you have to do is listen to the people who've been up here so far and talked. And yes, we were very much a family, and I think that if you didn't know us then, all you have to do is listen now, because I think we're still a family, and I think it's very evident, and I really appreciate being here. Thank you.
The Caverna Flash, Big C, Clarence Glover.
That was Big Mac. He said Big C. I'll only take about 30 seconds. I'd like to introduce Mr. Dorsey. Mr. Dorsey came with me. I don't have a wife. I have a secretary. My secretary said... Okay. I'm over my 10 seconds already, aren't I? I told her, since I don't have a wife, I'm taking Mr. Dorsey, and I forget what she said. That's what happens after 20 years. I do have what we call short-term memory, so I remember what Mr. Dorsey just said. We were introducing all the managers, not the managers, the cheerleaders, then the managers. Benny Beach, Ron, everybody kept coming up. So Mr. Dorsey leaned over and said, "Did each one of you guys have your own personal manager?" Everybody was except someone from Horse Cave. I was talking with the gentleman from the Courier Journal just a few minutes ago, and he asked me, could I pinpoint one particular time that was best out of all the times that we had? And I thought about it, and I thought, well, maybe I got a lot of notoriety from the shoestring play, and people talked about the Dayton shot. Probably only 2 shots that I made. And then I thought about Coach Joe and I when we used to room together, and he woke me up about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning down in Memphis, Tennessee. That was a good time. It was always good to have a game the next day and be awakened at 3 o'clock. I woke him up. But then the one thing that stood out in my mind when I started to think about it was a winter night. Everything was filled, the snow was everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, this is the honest to goodness truth. I called Coach Oldham, and I said, Coach, are we going to play the game tonight? And he said, man, you better get your over here. Of course we're going to play the game tonight. I could not believe that we were going to play when we had to come in by snowmobiles. I got here, there was the smallest crowd that we had all year, 10,500. I looked up and saw all those people, and I was thinking, man, I thought I was going to get to sleep in. So the thing that stood out in my mind was Charles Cowan, when he'd take that big Cadillac of his and would head down all the way to Houston. Think about Paulette when she typed all the letters for Coach Oldham. The thing I was thinking about was the best time was not exactly the team, although that was the best time, but the best time was when it was showtime and you and you and you and you and you were there. So we're going to give someone a hand. This is my second point. My third point is going to be 15 seconds. I would like for you to give you and you and you and you a hand. I really mean that. Third point is very quick. We had a good, solid group of guys who shared quite a bit, from New York to Horse Cave to Scottsville, Hazard, Shelby County. All the guys coming together. Danny Johnson, Steve. Guys stayed good looking. Most everybody stayed good looking. And it's so great to really share those particular feelings that we had when it was, and I called it showtime, when it was practice time. I was thinking that was in the past, and I guess the past are memories, and the future are dreams, and the present is reality. And we're all here, so let's make the most of it. Thank you.
Since we changed our format and let each one talk, I still need to let you know that Big Mac is going to be the official spokesman for the team. But before I present him, there's one person in here, special person to me, and I think about how much work that went on during that Final Four. And I start out with Jacksonville down to Athens and then to Houston. The president of the Alumni Association in those times did a whole lot of PR work for the university, and they still do. But at that time we had the little redhead from Nashville, Tennessee. It became the personal emissary for Governor Louis Nunn. He took care of anything he needed when we were up at South Bend for the first game. He did the same thing at our reception in Athens when we played Kentucky and Ohio State, and then he saw that he got to the Astrodome in Houston. I'd like to present him now, and he's soon to be Bobby Preston and B. Brees. Bobby Preston. An All-Stater, first 5 All-Stater, first 5 All-State tournament, first 5 All-American, pro player at Charlotte, at Seattle, and the Kentucky Colonels. A guy that we all respect so very much, and I think probably the best compliment he got paid was by the cheerleaders from Villanova in Houston when they had a sign that went the length of one side of the arena and 4 feet letters that said, Big Mac is just a 49-cent hamburger. Jimmy McDaniel.
Well, it's great to be back to see everyone here. What I'd like to do first of all, I'd like to introduce my wife, Carolyn McDaniels here. I'd like to say also that I have 2 boys. One is 18 years old. He's going to Florida State University. I've got a 9-year-old, and he's deciding whether he's going to come here, Syracuse University, North Carolina, or Ohio State. So he's going to be a ball player, okay? So he's deciding. Very happy to be here tonight. Also, I'd like to thank everyone for everything that's going on here tonight, all the work that's been put into this. Thank you very much. I'd also like to give thanks to my Father in heaven, who's changed my life. I'm also in the ministry now, and I'm doing very fine. Coach Olam, I'd like to thank you very much for coming over to Scottsville and recruiting me to come down here. I'd like to thank you very much. Dr. Scarborough, for those fantastic speeches you gave us that when we got up, we were going to run through a brick wall. I mean, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Coach Richards, thank you very much for everything. It was very enjoyable to battle with you in high school and then to come on to college and be a part of this whole thing with you. As far as... Yes, exactly. As far as my teammates, fellas, what can I say? I think you know that we love each other very much, and I think that as time has gone by, we've learned to love each other even more. We should really enjoy these times here and in these moments and pass it on to our kids, because that's what it takes to do. I'm just very happy to be here. I'd like to apologize to Steve Eaton for his senior year when I used to beat him to death in practice, Steve. I was just a hard player, and I'd like to apologize to you now. One thing that stands out in my mind about that year, I remember we was in New York City and we were ranked about 9th or 10th in the country at that time. I remember very well Rex Bailey and Jerry Dunn coming to my room and knocking on the door, and we had moved up to 4th ranking in the country at that particular time. The guys came and knocked on the door and they were very excited. Big Mac, look, we ranked number 4 in the country. And I told them, I said, well, guys, that's great, but we're not number 1 yet. Let's go back to the rooms and get ready to go to war. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. God bless each and every one of you.
Big Mac, have you gotten to see Jim Basil since you've been here? Well, I hope if you get a chance to. He's called me 3 or 4 times to see when you were coming to town, and that guy worships you and thinks what a great guy you are, and he knows now what you're doing, and he was awful proud of that fact. The coach, each one of you could introduce John Oldham your own way. There's a couple of things that I can say about him that you might not know. A Hartford Mustang. We had heard about this guy, Johnny Oldham, that was awesome over at Calhoun when we were over there in that little high school and they were coming on Friday night to play. We were frightened, and it was frightening, and it was more frightening after he got there. Everybody said, look at his hands when he gets here. So they really did look a little bit more human than we thought they were going to, but he didn't act human when he got out there on the floor. And then on to Western, where he made All-American. And I can remember sitting around the balcony in now what's the Marjorie Helm Library with my feet hung over, and we were playing a game one night. I haven't seen anybody do that before or since. That he went striding through the air. Somebody threw him the ball. He caught it with one hand like it was a softball, carried it over into goal, and he scared Georgetown College, the last team we played in his senior year. I can remember that about him. Other people might not have remembered that. But John Oldham has been my friend for a long time, and I'm happy to present you now, old Coach John Oldham.
Thank you, Lee. Being from Ohio County, well, I'm like about 4 or 5 more. This mic sort of scares me too. I've got some notes here somewhere, and I don't want to repeat, things that have already been said. And it looks like I won't if I don't find the notes. I want to introduce my wife, Bobby. And our son, John Robert. And our daughter, who is home with the sniffles, Suzanne. I'm sorry she couldn't be here. I don't think she's here. Dr. Martin is my family doctor, and Jack, if you don't mind, I'd like to see you in a few minutes. I got a terrible cold. Dr. Brooks is a great doctor and good friend, and he quit us in '71 as our team physician, but he was a super nice guy. And
I got to where I didn't like to fly. Because biblically, Jim, if you're in the ministry, you might want to use this sometime, because the Bible says, and lo, I'm with you always. And so I took that literally and quit flying. But my good friend Carol Brooks says, well, John, I love the train. I'll ride with you to Philadelphia. And I said, well, Carol, come on. I'd love to have your company. So Carol rode to Philadelphia with me, and I believe, if my memory is correct, and Clarence, I'm having some of your problems too, I think we went into New York and then flew from New York back to Nashville. But when I got ready to get on the train in New York, Carol says, John, you go ahead back on the train. I think I'll fly with the guys. So he left me. You know, this was pretty much a Kentucky ball club. We mentioned Horse Cave and Glasgow and Scottsville and Louisville and Paducah and Ashland and Hazard and Shelbyville. Chuck, you weren't far from Kentucky, just across the line. And it was a super ball club to coach. But you know, folks, when you have success as this ball club had, it starts at the top and works down. And I feel very fortunate that I was privileged to have as my president Dr. Dero Downing, and then Dr. John Minton, and then Ted Hornback, who had to leave, and he was dying for me to get up here and excuse him. He had to go pick up his wife and bring her to the ball game. But I probably at the time didn't have the appreciation that I should have had for an athletic director, but after sitting in that capacity for 15 years, Jimmy Fikes and I both now, we revere Coach Hornback greatly. Dr. Scarborough, it's great to see you here, and I just heard one of the young men mention your name, and I know in the 7 years I was coach, I called on you every year to come over and give us that inspirational speech that was different every year, but I wished I could repeat some of the remarks that you made, and I did for a long time, but I've just about forgot them now. But they were very inspiring, and I always encouraged my ball players to take a class that learned more under Dr. Scarborough than anybody else at Western. We thought the world and all of the old coach, and delighted to see him. And I look around you and I see, I've been disappointed if Charlie Count hadn't been here, because anybody that goes to East Tennessee, folks, they're a fan. That's a long way to go. And Charlie's car had about 150,000 miles on it. He is bragging on talking about him having a Cadillac, but that Cadillac had about 150,000 miles on it. He had trouble. Didn't you, Charlie? I'm going to hurry because I think they want me out of here in about 2 minutes. But this ball club had a 62-19. No one's told you that. 62-19 record in their 3 years. Anybody in here besides Ed Gibbon or Paul Just know what their home record was in the 3 years?
Lost two.
No. Wrong again. Anybody else know? Chuck Witt. That's right. This ball club was 36-0 in their 3 years. Jerry, you got any medicine? Let me highlight very quickly. 1968-69, their sophomore year, I picked 3 ball games out. SMU, we defeated SMU 92-79. We beat Michigan State 67-63 in the Chicago Stadium. Guys, you remember that one? Jerry, you remember that one? Remember outside the hotel, snowstorm. I said, we're going to go practice at the stadium. We couldn't get any cabs. I said, come on, let's go back. We'll just go up to the room for an hour. Went up to the room. Didn't practice, did we? Went out and beat Michigan the next night without practicing. These guys practice too much today. Duke University, we lost 72 to 73, but still our kids played well. 1969-70, they beat Texas Western, the nationally ranked ball club at the University of Texas at El Paso, 79. 78 to 59, beat LaSalle 102 to 80. They beat Dayton 76 to 63. This ball club that we're honoring tonight, in their junior year, averaged 90 points per game, and it's still a school record. They had a point spread of 13.4 between Western and their opponents. Their average home attendance in their junior year was 11,557. Isn't that great? 1970-71, probably the best ball game we played all year was in Freedom Hall, Coach Richards. How about it? Beat Jacksonville and Artis Gilmore 97 to 84. I think our kids played great. We forget about the game that we beat St. John's in Madison Square Garden, 19 points. Nasty. We lost to South Carolina 84 to 86 in the finals. I never will forget that ball game. They were from South Carolina. They had 5 New Yorkers starting. They was coached by Frank McGuire from New York. We had 2 New York officials. And I remember the writers coming in the dressing room and said, "What do you think about that one, Coach?" And I said, "Well, the Bible answers that. We were a stranger and they took us in." I really felt and then we played, as Coach Diddle would say, bless his heart, dear old Kentucky. And won that one. Then we played Ohio State, won in 2 overtimes. Played Villanova, lost in 2 overtimes, and then played Kansas. Largest crowd was in 70-71, was against Murray. We beat them 73 to 59. There was 14,277 fans in Diddle Arena. And the second largest was in the same year against Eastern Kentucky of 14,006 fans, and we beat them 83 to 64. Our average home attendance in 1970-71 was 12,173. So, a lot to be proud of. I'd like to sometimes see, I had a story on Glover, Big Mac, Rex Bailey, Jerry Dunn, Danny Johnson. I had a good one on Danny. Jim Rose, I had 4. Perry, JP, remember the night that Jim was having a little trouble with his girlfriend outside the dressing room door? And I went out and walked right into it. Jim, you remember that? And I just turned and wheeled back in, and Jerome and Mac and C was coming out that door at the same time, and I just spread them apart and didn't say a thing to them. I let them go right out into the middle of that thing. And then they came back in, grabbed me, and put me in the shower. I don't know how good we could have been, man, if this young man right here had been healthy. I don't know. I think he's probably the greatest athlete that I was privileged to coach in 20 years. I'm talking about pure athlete. There wasn't anything that the guy couldn't do, but we didn't have his services because of a knee injury. Mac, great as he was in basketball. Jerome, I wasn't kidding when I talked about float. The guy could float, and when he wasn't floating, I'd take him out because he was a floater. He could just stay up in the air like the young man from Chicago. Don Waldron is not here tonight. Jeff Eckel is not here. Jeff, bless his heart, if I've got a minute, let me just tell you about Jeff. Jeff walked out the house from school. I live exactly 2 miles and 2/10. He walked out the house, saw my wife, said, Coach told him I want to go out for basketball. I wasn't home. He walked back out there, Prez, knocked on the door, said, "Come in, my name's Jeff Eckel. I'd like to try out for basketball." I said, "Jeff, okay, what are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm coming to Western and I'm going to milk 14 cows out here." I said, "Son, you can't milk 14 cows and play basketball." He said, "Yes, I can. You just give me a chance." So I gave Jeff a chance, and we kept him for 4 years. Didn't play a whole lot, but he was somebody that you don't forget, because that young man practiced basketball, milked 14 cows all the time he was there. He came by to see me and says, Coach, you're not going to believe what I'll tell you. This is about 2 years ago. Came by the house, said, you're not going to believe what I'm going to tell you. Said I've got involved into skiing. And said I just took the skis off one day and started skiing barefooted. And you know I'm ranked in the top 10 in the nation in skiing barefooted. So there's the story about Ray Claycamp and Chuck Witt and Gary Sunmaker. Gary, bless his heart, I think about him that day we took pictures, Chuck, and Gary was going to be a starter on the ball club, and he goes up and dunks the ball in during picture day and breaks his wrist, and then that greatest defensive player I ever saw in my life, Rex Bailey back there. If there's a better defensive player in America since then or back before that, I don't know. He could cut anybody's water off. Rex Bailey, I would like for it to go down in the record, was the guy that played his role, played it well. I'm going to quit. Thanks a lot. You're great for being here. Jimmy, thank you, buddy. Buck Sidner, thank you. Gene Rhodes, thank you. Lon Slaughter, thank you for taking care of us. Physical Plant, thank you for taking care of us. Thank everybody.
I got a note here that says, what about your wife, Joyce? And your son, Steve. John Oldham, greatest coaching feat, according to the experts, was when he hid Clarence Glover on the floor so well that Gary Sunmaker almost didn't see him. Hey, listen, what about it back there? Are we ready to go? Are you going to lead us? Everybody that was introduced here tonight is going to be introduced on the floor. We're 7 or 8 minutes overdue. I know you people in here would like to spend some time talking with each one of these people, but somebody's going to lead all of you across and go in the side door over there. And if you don't go real quick, we're going to mess up the whole